Heyo everybody, Haku here with the second part of my 250 sub special, talking about every single anime that I've ever watched, from my least favorite to most favorite, and we have already gotten into the area where they're pretty much all anime that I think are good, and we're just seeing which ones I think are better, which ones I think are like the best or really high quality, or the ones I really personally like. And this episode will be covering my 44th favorite all the way to my 23rd favorite. And then next week, hopefully, I will be able to do the final part of this where I will discuss my favorite 22 anime ever. So, yeah, sorry for making you wait a week for this one, but here we're going with the second part. So let's get right into my 44th favorite. My 44th favorite anime that I've ever seen is Monster Musume no Iru Nichijou, or it was released in English as Everyday Life with Monster Girls, I believe. And also, it's generally just referred to as Manmusu for short. And the thing with it, the reason why it's so low on the list, because it's one of my all-time favorite manga, and most of you guys know it, I cover it on the channel, one of my all-time favorite manga, but the anime is so low on the list because for me, I was a fan of the manga far before the anime came out. Then when the anime did come out, I figured I'm a huge fan of the manga. I'll watch it week to week, every single week. But I wasn't even able to. I watched the first 2 or 3 episodes week to week, and I was like, I'll just marathon it when the rest come out. Because for me, the anime did not live up to the manga, and it still really doesn't. My thoughts on the anime as a whole after I did marathon it once the season ended. The first, I'd say 4 to 6 episodes. The first 4 to 6 episodes are pretty slow, and my huge problem with it is that one of the reasons the manga is so great, and the manga in the series as a whole, don't get me wrong, is great. One of the reasons it's so great is because it is a brilliant deconstruction of the harem genre, making fun of common tropes of harem anime and manga and stuff like that. So that's what makes it really good, and it focuses really strong on the comedy, but it also has a lot of great chapters and a lot of great scenes that actually have a lot of nice emotional weight. It does good actual storylines in addition to focusing on the comedy. Also, I'd say there's not even fan service in every chapter of the manga, but there are some more fan service heavy chapters, but in general there's maybe 1, 2 in some 2 or more in some more extreme cases for chapters that are fan service or ecchi scenes. And it strikes a really good balance, at least in the manga it did. It struck a really good balance of, it was funny, it focused on the comedy, it had some good storyline here and there, and then it would throw in the ecchi or fan service scenes just to have that in there, and they would do it in a funny manner, and it would just be a good scene still, even though it was fan service. And fan service isn't bad. A lot of people say it is, but if it's balanced and if it works well and if it doesn't distract from the focus, it is good. And the way the manga does it is really good. But the way the anime did it was that they focused the first 4 to 6 episodes, like getting back to the actual point, the first 4 to 6 episodes focused so hard on ecchi and fan service, and they did this weird faux romance sort of stuff that wasn't really in the manga. It was kind of there, but they focused more of it in the anime, where it's not really much of a focus at all in the manga. They just focused on this romance and ecchi stuff that they didn't focus at all in the first few episodes on the comedy, which is the biggest part of the manga. So it's like they made the anime, but the scenes had a completely different focus. Instead of, say, the manga will have an ecchi scene, and then the rest of the chapter will focus on the comedy, this would have the comedy sparingly, but we would have scenes that were like 2 to 4 minutes of nothing but boob shot or something. Like, we would have these really long, drawn-out ecchi scenes that were way longer than they needed to be distracted from the actual story. And I just did not like the first 4 to 6 episodes of a series based on a manga that I absolutely love. So that was really disappointing for me. Luckily, the second half, I loved the second half of the anime. That's the thing. The first few episodes I did not like, even though it's a series I absolutely love. Maybe me absolutely loving the series made me like it even less. But then once we got to the later stuff was good. It focused more on the comedy. There was way, way less fan service and ecchi. And it felt like a way better show. And I think around the midway point is when it started to get that way, and it found its pacing, and it was really good towards the end. So I would still very much recommend watching it. It's just, though I recommend watching it, I will warn you that the first few episodes are kind of a bit to sit through if you want any actual comedy or storyline. My 43rd favorite anime that I've seen is Ao no Exorcist, or in English, Blue Exorcist. So Blue Exorcist for me, I thought it had a really good setting. I really enjoyed it. It was one of those where you see a lot in anime where where they get to the end of the season and instead of just, they're like, I don't know how to end it in keeping with the manga, so since we're not sure if we're getting a season 2, not sure what we're doing, let's just twist it around, make our own ending, and it usually, for me, doesn't turn out that well, because usually they just go for this big thing out of nowhere that doesn't seem like it fits a story that well. And that for this, it was better than some. It was better than the Akame ga Kill anime ending. So it was better than some, but the ending was still a little bit weak for this one. Another thing, it had really, really strong characters and some really weak characters. Like, there were some characters that were really enjoyable, had some real depth to their personality, and some characters that were there, and they were even there in the forefront, and we never really learned much about them. We never really got much into their personality. They were just sort of there. So it's one of those things where there was a lot of good, but also some just bland whatever. And that's probably why it's where it is. There's nothing real... I wouldn't say there's anything really bad about the series, but it's not all great. It's not all amazing. But I did really personally like it, and there is a season 2 coming out. I'm not sure how they're going to do it, if they're going to twist things around so that it fits the ending of the first season, or if I don't even know how close the first season was to the manga. All I know is that it was changed quite a bit. So, not sure how much quite a bit is, but I don't know what they're going to do with the second season, but that's one of those things that I could watch it and review it for the channel week to week if you guys want me to. I don't really feel like reviewing it week to week personally, but I think it'll probably be pretty popular, so if you guys would like to see that, then I can probably do it. If not, I can just I can watch it on my own time, or I can marathon it when it's completed and then do a review on it then, if you would rather see something like that. But I'm just saying that's something that I could cover on the channel in the future. Next up, my 42nd favorite anime that I've ever seen in its entirety is K, and I also have the movie K Missing Kings up here. The way the series works is K is the first season, then Missing Kings was a movie that sort of it's like a sequel to the first season, and it comes before the second season, and then the second season is Return of Kings. I watched the first 3 or 4 episodes of Return of Kings week to week, but then this is a thing that'll probably be coming with a lot of these, is like I watched a lot of the second seasons to a lot of these like week to week, and then fell out of it, and I was like, I'll marathon it some other time, and I haven't gone back and marathoned it yet. That's how I am with Return of Kings. So as for the first season and Missing Kings, what I can say for them, the animation is amazing. I love the animation. It has some of the nicest looking art style, some of the most fluid and detailed animation. I completely love the production quality of it. Soundtrack, I don't remember being anything special. It's just, it's probably pretty good, but I don't remember it being anything special, honestly. I really loved the ending to the first season. It was really strong. The characters, a lot of them were really strong as well. There were a few weaker generic ones, though. I will give it that. This is one of those where I think it was incredibly well made, and I really, really loved the story, but it just didn't stick with me as like one of my favorites or anything. It just didn't stick with me as closely as some other series did personally. So, yeah, those are my thoughts on K at the 42nd. Let's move on to our 41st favorite. My 41st favorite anime that I've seen is Kuroshitsuji, or Black Butler in English. And the way the series is set up, once again, having to explain because this one's got a lot of seasons and stuff going on. There was Black Butler, or Kuroshitsuji, and then Black Butler 2, or again the same thing, 2. And then Kuroshitsuji, Book of Circus, was the 3rd season. And then after that, there was an OVA series that's Book of Murder, and a movie is coming out in 2017, I believe, called Book of the Atlantic. So there is still more that I haven't seen. I haven't seen the OVA Book of... I think it's only 2 OVAs, the Book of Murder arc, and of course I haven't seen the movie that hasn't come out yet. But yeah, I saw the first 3 seasons. The first season I thought was great. I loved it. I loved the characters. I loved the setting. The whole Victorian era thing felt really awesome. And it was really one of my favorites at the time. Yeah, just really one of my all-time favorites after seeing the first season. After seeing the second season, still one of my all-time favorites. I loved it. And the second season was not canon at all. Going from the first to 3rd season makes sense, but the second season is just all filler. It isn't canon, but I still love it. It's a really enjoyable story, really fun. And again, after the second season, I figured that I was like, well, I guess they're not going to follow the manga. That's pretty much where it's going to end. Maybe sometime in the far future we'll get a Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood style revamp. But no, they went ahead and made the 3rd season, continuing the canon storyline from the first season. And the 3rd one, honestly, Book of Circus. I loved it up until the ending. I loved all the circus characters so much. But they were kind of the bad guys. I'm not really sure. I don't want to spoil anything. Like, I'm trying so hard to avoid spoiling stuff. But let's just say after the 3rd one, I thought that Ciel and Sebastian were the biggest asshats. They were the biggest, most horrible people in Book of Circus. I thought they were terrible. And, like, they were so bad of people that I was like, how can I root for the good guys after this? Like, I could not stand Ciel and Sebastian. Like, they were funny, but the stuff they did, I just could not stand them in Book of Circus. I was rooting so hard for the bad guys to somehow win. Like, just because the good guys were so terrible. The bad guys were actually kind of good. They actually had their reasons, their morals. They were stuck into doing this. And then Ciel and Sebastian were just doing terrible things for their own selfish reasons. And I did not... I loved Book of Circus, but I didn't like how it ended. I didn't like what happened to the main characters. And that's why I haven't watched Book of Murder, because I'm like, this was one of my favorites, but I don't know how I could ever root for the main characters again after the crap they pulled in Book of Circus. I don't know how I could root for them again, and that's where I'm stuck at with the series. So it's still my 41st favorite, but it has certainly fallen from where it was. My 40th favorite anime that I've ever seen is Fukigen no Mononoke, or in English, The Morose Mononoke, one that we reviewed for the channel. And just getting into that now, I just noticed that I didn't tell you guys the basic premise of the anime before, so just running through them real quick. The basic premise for Monster Musume no Iro Nichijou, or just Monmusu, Everyday Life with Monster Girls, is it's a world where an extra species bill was just passed, saying that people like vampires, elves, orcs, lamias, things like that all exist in the real world, and now we're going to have to learn to live alongside them as humans. And so now there are people coming to live from around the world as cultural exchange students, and it's about this main character, human guy, who essentially gets a harem of cultural exchange student girls that come to live with him, and it's basically comedy and stuff. Then for Aono Exorcist or Blue Exorcist, it's about a guy who was born half demon, I believe, or half devil. Either way, he's half Satan's son or whatever, and he was raised by a priest and decided to become an exorcist like the priest, so it's about a half-demon exorcist, essentially. Then for K, it's about, the series is set up, it's kind of a weird setting, that there are 7 kings, each with their own powers and abilities, who can also pass down a little part of their power to people who are with them. So those 7 kings all have people under them with like extensions of their power that are part of their clan or tribe or whatever. And pretty much it's about a sort of murder, mystery, action between all of them. Then you're really trying not to spoil anything with that one. And for Kuroshitsuji, it's about a boy who is a noble in Victorian English times, and basically his parents were killed, so he made a deal with a demon, and the demon would serve him and be his butler, and the thing is, the demon would help him find and get revenge on whoever killed his parents or whatever, in exchange for him giving his soul to the demon. And that's basically about how that one goes. It's a lot more complex than that, and I think I may have messed some stuff up in there, but that's the basic gist of it. Okay, so for Mononoke, and finally getting to Mononoke's premise, it's about this boy who gets a yokai attached to him, so he goes to an exorcist to get it removed, and once the exorcist removes it, the main character finds out that he is now in debt to the exorcist, so he goes to work for the exorcist at a place called the Mononoke to pay off his debt to him. And that's the basic premise, and it's about him going around meeting and saving yokai and sending him back to the underworld, working with the exorcist. So that is the basic premise of Mononoke, and I freaking loved it. It was really funny. It was a good comedy. And the thing that I love the most about Fukigen no Mononoke is when you watch it, it seems like this really basic, simple story. That's like all it is. If you just watch it for what the story is, it's a really basic and simple story. But the thing about it is, if you read between the lines, look at what the different, like, all the characters sort of represent stuff. All the storylines mean these obscure things, and it's like they don't come out and straight say it to your face, but like everything in this basic simple story has a greater moral and purpose behind it, and that's what I love. It's like this really simple, easy to digest story, but when you really look into it, it's really, really heavy and deep in a lot of areas. Like, there was one episode, and I'm trying my best not to spoil anything. One episode, they're trying to do an exorcism on this scarecrow yokai who is haunting this place, haunting this field, because his best friend, who was just a normal, average scarecrow, burned up in a field fire one time. So, again, you're like, okay, it's just a normal scarecrow that burned up in a field fire. What's the big deal? But the whole point and purpose of the story is that the reason he's haunting the place, when you look into it, it's like a real-life portrayal of survivor's guilt, where you're like, I survived, but this person didn't, and it happens to a ton of people that survive traumatic events. I survived this, that person didn't. Should I have stayed behind and died with them? Why couldn't I have brought them with me? Why couldn't it have been me instead of them? And it's a real heavy look at survivor's guilt, and a lot of episodes were like that. Even the one that, there was only one I can remember where they outright kind of say it, is the basic premise of the episode is that it's a mother and a daughter, and the daughter hires them to come do an exorcism, but the whole time the daughter is getting in their way because she's like, oh no, I want to see what's going on, or ghosts real or aliens real, that kind of thing all over them. But the mother's like, why is she wasting money paying you for this kind of thing? Where's your proof that all this stuff exists? This isn't scientifically possible, stuff like that. And it was to show the episode, it seems like that's a pretty simple premise, but it was to show the two different sides that humans take when looking at paranormal or supernatural type of stuff, where there's the side of human curiosity, it like that the girl represents, and the side of doubt that the mom represents, where you see there's people who are like, this is impossible, where's the scientific proof? And people who are just like all over, completely convinced of all of these crazy conspiracy theories and everything. And how most people have a sort of balance between the two, but there are those two sides of things. So I really, really loved the symbolism there between the mom and daughter being curiosity and doubt. Like, it's so good when you look into the deep meanings of everything in just this simple story. I love how it's written like that. So yeah, that was a pretty big explanation on this one, mostly because I was explaining the other series' basic premises as well. But that's what I think. So what I think of Fukigen no Mononoke. So let's go ahead and jump into our top 40. And by top 40, I meant top 39. So my 39th favorite anime I've ever seen is Akame ga Kill, and it was released in English under Akame ga Kill as well, I believe. So the thing with Akame ga Kill is it was good overall, and I really personally liked it, but I have a ton of things that I didn't like about it. There were, like, I loved it, but there were so many things I didn't like about it. I thought it had a really strong-ish storyline. There were parts that weren't strong, but overall it was mostly really strong. Especially the beginning. The beginning was incredible, but the end, the end was a problem. The ending was, like I said earlier, one of those where the anime says, we're not going to catch it, or like we're not going to go any further with this, so let's make a big anime only ending. And it's like, it's the most ridiculous and stupid thing they could have possibly done. Pretty much like, let's bring out some big giant robots. Like, and it didn't even fit the setting. It didn't fit anything. It was really freaking stupid. So the ending was objectively terrible. Another thing that was good and bad. Good, there were a lot of deaths. You didn't know who was going to die. It was sad when people died, but that made it difficult to get attached to some characters. Speaking of the characters as well, there were some good characters that I really liked, like say Leon or Lubbock, and then there were some shit characters they tried to make you like. S-Death has so many fans out there, but watching it, I could not stand S-Death the entire time. I thought she was a really shoddy character, and like the show kept trying to push her like, you're supposed to like this character, and she was not likable. She was a really cliche and annoying character. And just the combat as well sometimes was really good, and then sometimes was really bad. It was this thing with this show where there were so many things that were really good, and yet they were also doing some things that were really bad and just did not work out. Also, the romance parts in it were not good. It was another thing with romance not ruining something. I don't think the romance necessarily took away anything from Akame ga Kill, but the romance in it wasn't good. Didn't take anything away, but wasn't good. And a big problem with it that is more of a problem in other things, not as big a problem for this, is it seemed like the writers were trying so hard to be dark and edgy. And that's a problem with a lot of modern anime, where you see these anime trying to be certain things, and so many start out good and they're the kind of adult actiony stuff that I would normally like, but they just try so hard to be dark and edgy that it's like, come on, it's too much. So they really try to make people call it dark and edgy, and it works for Akame ga Kill a lot more than it works for some other series, so I will give it that. So this was pretty much all negative stuff I was talking about, but even though it was mostly negative stuff I was talking about, I did like the series enough to put it this high on the list, and I just thought it was well made and good enough to be this high on the list. I also just realized I forgot to say the basic premise. Dang. Basic premise of this one is this kid goes and joins up in sort of a, I guess I could call it sort of a medieval fantasy sort of era, and he goes and joins up with the revolutionaries' assassin force, so he becomes an assassin for the revolutionaries against the empire and stuff, trying to take down this big corrupt evil empire. And that is, that's the basic gist of it. There's a lot more to it, but I don't want to spoil anything. My 38th favorite anime of all time was Durarara. But, Durarara, it has actually a three-part sequel, kind of, Durarara X2, and it has, like, Show 10 and some third part, I think. But, yeah, it's 3 different sort of 12-episode seasons, I believe, make up the second part. But what I thought of it, the basic premise, of course, it's basically just a city, and we follow a bunch of different characters in the city, and all their stories kind of connect. There are some high school students, some mythical creatures, some scientists, some people with super strength, some people in the underground gang community, and it all sort of matches up together. So that's pretty much all I'll say about it, is that there's a bunch of different stuff, different characters in the city, and all their stories intertwine, and we follow them each differently. And I love that setup and aspect. I love the actual series. The one bad thing I can throw out there is that the romance in it was shit. That's probably the only bad part, was the romance. Pretty much everything else, I loved the characters. I loved the story. Loved basically everything about it. The second season I just didn't get into. It was airing when I marathoned the first season, and then I was like, I don't really feel like watching this week to week, so I'll just wait until it's done. And that's essentially where I was left with it. So basic thoughts, pretty much good all around, with a couple bad parts, or a couple meh parts, and most of that had to do with the romance. So, and again, the romance in it wasn't as shit as a lot of other series, but it still wasn't very good, and it was definitely the low point. But yeah, good all around, with a little bit of low here and there. Next up, my 37th favorite anime that I've ever seen is Heavy Object. Now for me, Heavy Object, the basic premise is that it's set in a world far in the future where the United Nations collapsed, so now the world is set up to where there are basically these 4 big empires, but if you were to look at the world map, how it's separated into countries and stuff would look like this crazy stained glass window where each of the 4 big empires or whatever just have these small bits of territory here and there throughout the world, making this big stained glass appearance over the whole world. And there are a few countries here and there that are independent or not part of those big 4. And of course, the world being set up like this leads to a bunch of small conflicts, and the world has advanced to such a point where there are the heavy objects, or just objects, and they're pretty much like, we had the tank, we had the supergiant warship, and the world and humanity progressed and built bigger and better weapons so that we could just send in an object. An object is just pretty much a giant warship that can be on land or on sea. It's got weaponry all over it, can sustain hits from a nuke, I think. So it is a very, very powerful weapon, and pretty much it's what wars these days are fought with. Each country will send in an object, and if the object from one country wins, then the other country's like, well, we can't take it out with any planes. It would take like hundreds of planes to take it. I think they said it's like 500 planes is around what it takes to take down an object. So it would take like 500 planes. It would take infinite foot soldiers. So people really give up if their object is destroyed, essentially. And that's the way this thing works. You win a battle through defeating the other object, and that's just how war works. Well, the story, I think, is great. Doesn't focus on the people piloting the objects. It focuses on these 2 foot soldiers. One is a mechanic there studying to be a designer of objects, and one is just a foot soldier there from a noble family that's trying to earn some military medals and recognition to bring back to his noble family or whatever, to add to his name. So we focus on those 2, and also this one object pilot, but not as much on the pilot. She's just friends with the 2 soldiers we focus on, and I love that. There's just this world where there's these giant, colossal, just beasts of weapons fighting each other, and then we have the foot soldiers running around trying to do something on the ground and everything. It's a really cool setup, and I really, really enjoy it. The few bad things I'd say about it, the romantic portions, again with romance just being, I don't want people to think I hate romance, because there are actual romance anime higher up on this list than this. It's not about romance, it's about throwing something in there, just throwing the romance in there where it doesn't have to be in there just to throw it in, where it takes away, where it distracts from plot, where it just isn't good or realistic. that's what the romance was like here as well. Again, not the worst I've seen, but it was definitely one of the lower points of this. Another lower point of this is that I'd say the main character, one of those two soldiers I talked about, Quenther, he gets a little bit too special snowflake main character-y. One of the hugest reasons why Sword Art Online is probably one of the worst anime ever made is that nothing wrong can ever happen to Kirito. He can bring anybody back to life. He can kill anything. He's massively overpowered. Everything always works out for him, and even when it doesn't work out for him, it's only there to make it so that things in the future will work out for him. It's just a really convenient and protected character that plot just wraps all around and keeps nestled safe. Quenther got that way here and there. So that is, again, one of the problems. But I would say just the setting, the enjoyability really outweighs that. The comedy is so great, and it does a great job at mixing the action of it with the comedy. Like, we'll have this really nice action sequence with some good comedy that's thrown in. It does really well. Another negative I'd say is it does good occasionally at the pervy comedy, and that's what a lot of its comedy relies on. But sometimes it does get to be a little bit much. Like, the fan service and the ecchi comedy gets a little bit too much at times. But overall, it's usually pretty good. So I'd say I like the story, and the dialogue is also something I really like. I'd say the story and dialogue are way good enough to outweigh those negatives I talked about, and I would say 100% check it out and give it a try. It's I think some people complain about it being a little slower paced, but I actually find it to be pretty fast paced, and I really enjoy it personally, so I'd say check it out if you want. Next up, my 36th favorite anime is Haibane Renmei. It was also released in English as Haibane Renmei, and it means Charcoal Feather Federation. Basic premise of it: this girl wakes up in this world, like she has a dream that she's falling through the sky, and there's this crow circling around her, and then she wakes up bursting out of a cocoon in this random room in this building, where she meets a bunch of women who have wings and halos on their head, and then eventually she grows wings out of her back and gets a halo on her head and everything. And it's all about her not knowing anything, her like, how did I get here? What is this place? And it would be easy to say that they're all just angels or something, but then there are humans as well in the town. So it's this this really cool system, and all the different girls with the wings and the halos have different jobs. And the big thing about this for me, if you want to see some art, the art is genius in Haibane Renmei. The art and the animation, brilliant. It's an older anime, but it is some of the best I have seen. It is just beautiful. I love it so much. In addition to that, the story is really good as well. Contemplated putting this higher up on the list, but I just wasn't sure. The story, I think, is really good. The art, some of the best. I don't really have anything negative to say. It might not be everyone's cup of tea. It is a little bit slow. It's more focused on the mystery of how they got there and character interactions and what they're doing and things like that. So it is a little bit slower paced, and I know a lot of people don't really like that, but I thought it was great. It was something I was supposed to review for the channel, but I never really got around to reviewing it. 100%. This is one of those that I say, you've got to at least try to watch it. It is just so beautiful. Anything else I wanted to say about it? Nope, that's about it. Also, the characters really, really well done. I love Raka and Reki, two of my favorite characters. Yeah, pretty much all the characters were good though, so I say check it out for sure. That was Haibane Renmei. My 35th favorite is Black Lagoon. I'll probably honestly be a little bit quick with this one because I really loved the whole vibe it had and the world. Basic premise, I've only seen season 1, by the way. I have not seen the Blood Trail OVA or whatever, but that's okay because I didn't really like Roberta anyway. But after seeing season 1, I love this. I really love the 80s action movie vibe. It just feels like an 80s action movie. I love the realism of the world. Of course, there are lots of things that are anime, lots of things that are very anime about it, not very real, but it has a good realism to it. And I just really like it. There are a lot of badass and sexy women. Revi is hello, but Balalaika is my love. I love Balalaika so much. So, yeah, Black Lagoon, really, really enjoyable one. I'd say check it out if you just like some crazy 80s action type stuff. One thing about the series I didn't like, Garcia and Roberta. I could not stand Garcia and Roberta. And it's one of the reasons I didn't watch Roberta's Blood Trail. Roberta was just annoying, and I was like, somebody kill her already. And more so with Garcia, just because, like, he was such a pain in the ass. He was like, no, main characters, take me with you, protect me from this person. And then when the person catches up to them, no, don't kill this person, and then he cheers for that person to kill them. Freaking terrible. I hated Garcia. That was a little kid's name, right? Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was. Somebody should have killed the kid. That's horrible, but sometimes it needs to happen in stories, and it needed to happen in this one. But either way, really liked it. 35th favorite, I think that's where it was on the list. Yeah. So let's move on to 34th. My 34th favorite anime I've ever watched is K-On!, and I have seen the entire first season, and I think almost all of the second season, if not all of it. I couldn't really remember if I had seen the whole second season or not, so I didn't want to put it up here because it's been a good while since I watched it. And my story behind it and why I liked it, basic premise, I forgot about that. Oh, I forgot about basic premise for Black Lagoon too. Dang it. Black Lagoon is essentially about this dude who ends up joining these pirates out in the Southeast Asian area, like near Thailand and Taiwan, Singapore and all that. And he just gets involved with underground crime and stuff there. K-On! Is about these 4 high school girls who form a band, and it goes all throughout their high school lives. They get new members, or a new member, and stuff like that, and it is just really, really enjoyable. And I think I loved it more because it's not the sort of thing I watch. Like I said, I watched it a while ago, and the thing is, before I saw this, all I had ever saw were actions, adventures, shonen and seinen type stuff, and this was the first ever thing that was like non-action adventure fantasy that I tried to watch, and I thought I would dislike it. I was like, I don't really like romances or comedies that much. I like them if they're good, but I don't like them as much as action and stuff. But then I just fell in love with it. I thought the music was amazing. I loved the characters. I thought the designs and everything were awesome. It was really moe, but I loved it. So I would say 100% for sure. If you don't watch it, at least try to find the music somewhere and check it out. So good. I love it. And that's basically about it, I guess. I haven't seen the movie. There is a movie. So, yeah, that's my story with it. It's really funny, really enjoyable, really just cute and heartwarming kind of thing, and fun to watch. So that's it for K-On! My 33rd favorite anime I've watched in its entirety is Tokyo Ghoul, the anime of the manga that you guys have told me a million times that I need to read for the channel. And sorry I haven't. I don't know. The anime to me it was good. I really liked it, or else it wouldn't be this high on the list. But I don't know. It's just not something I really felt like continuing that much. I watched half of the second season week to week because I liked it so much. But then I sort of fell out of it because I don't know. I don't really like watching stuff week to week as much as I do marathoning it. And I still haven't finished Route A, which was the second season. And the way it works is that there's the first season, and then Route A is the second season. And I'm pretty sure Route A was what the manga author said that he thought about doing, but he decided not to do for the manga. So it's like a different timeline, a different route than what the manga took. So it's like a prototype route for the story. So I watched half of that. I watched all the first season. I loved it. The soundtrack, one of the best, one of my favorites at least. I love the soundtrack. I love the use of lyrical pieces. I love when soundtracks in general use lyrical pieces. It was really nice. The animation was nice. Story was nice. Tiny bit of romance here, but it didn't hurt anything. The romance was actually done pretty well. So no complaints there. I have one big complaint, but other than that, I loved about everything in it. I loved the characters. The story was tragic, but still enjoyable. The one big thing I have is kind of what I said about Akame ga Kill earlier, but way more. And that is the part where I said trying way too hard to be dark and edgy. Tokyo Ghoul tries way too hard. It's like their story is great. If they just let their story be great and let it sit, it would be good. Just carry us with the characters, it would be good. But they try so hard to say, look, this is dark and edgy. Please like it being dark and edgy. It is just, that is the bad thing, is that it tries way too hard to be dark and edgy when it could just be itself, be good. And it is still very good. I would still 100% recommend watching it. It's not for everyone, but I think one thing I said about it, what it like made me feel like watching it, I was like, this is like Twilight if Twilight was good. like if it had a good turn to it and decided to not be about the romance, but to be about the character development and characters. That's sort of how it went from the first, like when I watched the first episode, that's sort of the turn it took and how it carried on. So yeah, I loved pretty much everything about it, except I can say that I don't like how edgy it tried to be. And that's about it for Tokyo Ghoul. Next up, my 32nd favorite is Dead Man Wonderland, and I forgot to give you the basic premise once again for Tokyo Ghoul. Pretty much a world where there are ghouls. Ghouls are sort of similar to vampires, except they eat human meat, and they can only eat human meat. They can't eat anything else or else they'll get sick. The dude gets, I don't want to get into spoilers. That's pretty much all I'm going to say about it. I don't want to get into any spoilers, because there are some spoilers, some spoilery stuff pretty early on that's kind of unexpected pretty early on, so I don't want to give anything for that. But Dead Man Wonderland is a good example of what Tokyo Ghoul could have done on the edge factor wise. Dead Man Wonderland was dark and edgy, but it didn't necessarily try. It was itself. It was dark and edgy. It didn't try to be. It was, and it was really, really good. We did get ripped off for season 2. There has never been a season 2. Don't know when we'll ever get a season 2. If we'll ever get a season 2, at this point I'm thinking we probably won't even. I don't know. It sold a lot though. I figured as much as it sold, they should be trying to milk it, but they never did. Story was good. Characters great. I loved the characters for Dead Man Wonderland. Basic premise is the kid is in his classroom and somebody murders everyone in his class except for him. So of course the police are like, you're the one survivor and you're the only eyewitness saying somebody other than you did it. If there was a guy that murdered all your class, why wouldn't he have murdered you as well? So they pretty much arrest him for the murder of all his class. He gets sent to this prison, and in the prison they have these sort of like underground prisoner fights to the death, and the prisoners also can use powers based on controlling their blood. So really cool characters, really cool premise and setup. I like that they're just in a prison fighting each other in this underground prison fighting system. It was just really, really fun. The ending as well I thought was nice. It was a good cliffhanger. Sadly, we didn't get a season 2 to really capitalize on the cliffhanger, I guess. So there were some bad things, but I thought it was really good overall. The powers were nice, fights were nice. The crow, I forget his real name. He was my favorite. I really like the owl as well. What was his name? Nagato or not Nagasa or something? He was really cool. I liked that guy. It's been a while since I watched this one. And that's pretty much all I got for Dead Man Wonderland, my 32nd favorite. Next up, my 31st favorite anime is Bleach, and again, the main setup for Bleach is that this kid can see ghosts and stuff. He ends up a Shinigami or a death god. He meets them. He becomes one himself, and he goes off to fight these monsters called Hollows. Basic, simple shonen kind of setup. It's a long-running shonen. Of course, you've probably already heard of it or seen it, sort of like One Piece or Naruto. But it was incredibly popular. It was one of the first anime I ever watched when I got back into anime as an adult. I really loved it. It was my favorite series for a long time. But the thing is, where it was really good in the first little bit, the story declined quite a bit. It didn't decline as much as Fairy Tail, and it was better than Fairy Tail at its high points. But overall, the first, I don't know, arc or two was really, really good. But then the arcs just got progressively worse until its final arc in the manga was terrible. But luckily we didn't even get to that. And it was just good. I even thought the filler arcs were really good. I liked Bleach's filler arcs. So I think it was a really enjoyable shonen. It was my personal favorite for a long time. And the only bad things I can say about it are that it declined over time. There was a lot of plot armor for the good guys, and it declined heavily over time. And next, my 30th favorite anime, Soul Eater Not. Now, Soul Eater Not is a spin-off of the sort of longer running, only 50-some episodes, I think, Shonen Soul Eater. And it's a really, really enjoyable show if you don't compare it to the original. Now, the way this works is it's set in a world at a school where there are people who can transform into weapons and other people who serve as their partners and use the weapons to fight witches. Now, the thing with this is that where it was all about the action and the long-running big shonen story for the original Soul Eater Not focuses on the Not class, the people who aren't really going to be going out and doing all this fighting that much, the people who are just more trying to control their abilities to transform and stuff like that. And I really loved it. I loved the characters. I loved the slow, light, airy pacing. It was a really nice show, but it's nothing like the original. If you compare it to the original and you're looking for something like the original, you'll be disappointed, no doubt. But if you look at it for what it is and enjoy it for something completely different, it is great as a series that's completely different yet set in the same universe. I loved it in that regard. The comedy was really good. The characters were really good. I loved the focus and pace of it, so I have nothing bad to say about it at all. Like a lot of these, it just, while it's great, there are, I guess, 29 that I thought were even better. So that's it for my 30th favorite, and next up is number 29. Next up on my list, my 29th favorite anime is Sky Girls. Now, Sky Girls is this really obscure piece by Konami that I don't want to sound hipsterish, you probably haven't heard of it, but like legit, you probably have not heard of it. It's pretty freaking not a big popular title or anything. It's from a bit of a few years ago. But the thing is, I really, really enjoyed it. I didn't expect pretty much anything going into it, but it really, really exceeded my expectations and kind of became the dark horse being this really obscure one this high on the list. But I honestly really, really enjoyed it. I thought the storytelling was really good. Elise was my favorite character, Elise Best Girl. But the basic premise of it is that these creatures called worms came in and started devastating humanity, and they killed off probably like a ton of humanity. I think they say in the series at least a third maybe, and I know they said because most of the world's armies were made up of mostly men. I think they said 90% of the male population of the world was defeated, so they had to start pressing women and girls into the armed forces and everything too, and that they created these mechs, and they're not like these big... I really am not a fan of the big, unrealistic, human-looking Gundam-type mechs, but they're more like a light exoskeleton type of mech, and they can only be piloted by certain people, so the army is going out and seeking out these certain people that are compatible with them, and it's about these girls that they find are compatible that they get to fly the mechs and fight against the worm creatures. And they don't really look anything like actual worms, they're just called worms. But either way, things go on from there, and it's light, airy, fun, way better than I expected, actually a decent plot. So I mean, that's what my thoughts are on Sky Girls, the dark horse of this list, really. Next up, 28th on the list, is Magi, the Labyrinth of Magic. Now, I will admit I haven't seen Kingdom of Magic yet, nor have I seen Sinbad no Boken or Sinbad's Adventures, Adventures of Sinbad, whatever they released it as in English. I've seen neither of those yet, but for just the first season of the Magi anime, or Magi, I guess, since it's Japanese, it'd be Magi instead of Magi. But what they're going for is obviously Magi. Um, so really, the animation was beautiful. I love the setting. The setting is something that, other than Aladdin for Disney movies, we really don't see a ton. So I love the setting, love the animation, the characters as well. Very, very strong. I loved the characters. I have nothing bad to say about this. The plot, the story was so good. The action was really good. Not a single outright bad thing or complaint about the series at all. There are just, 27 that I liked even more, but this was damn near perfect. I loved it. I think it's hard to say my favorite characters. I liked Haku. I liked the one chick that was part of the main group. Morgiana, I think. It's been so long since I watched it. Not even a year, really, but it feels like it's been so long. I also liked Haku. That was her name. She was like my favorite, even though we barely got to see her in it. Jafar was cool too. Sinbad was awesome. So many good characters. That's one of the big things for Magi for me. The setting and the characters, loved both. Nothing bad to say about it. There are just 27 I like more, so let's get into the 27th. Number 27 on my list is Soul Eater, and this is where we're getting into the point where everything for me are just favorites that get out-favorited by other things. Magi, I don't think I threw in the description, but it's basically about it's an anime remix of Scheherazade's Thousand Tales, I guess, with like Alibaba and Aladdin and everything. And it's that sort of setting. They go into labyrinths to find genies or jinn, and really, really cool setting. I would recommend it. Soul Eater is, like I explained earlier in Soul Eater, not a world where there are humans that can transform into weapons, and there are people who use those weapons to fight against witches. And this, instead of focusing on just the class and weakness and stuff, it actually focuses on the main story of characters using the weapons to go out and fight the witches. So it's more action and adventure oriented, and it is incredible. I love the plot, I love the story. The ending for the anime, a lot of people say is a bit weak. I don't know. I read the manga as well. The manga ending was also, a lot of people didn't think was the strongest, but the thing is, even with the ending not being the strongest, the journey through, the ending still wasn't terrible in my opinion, and the journey through was great. So I love the characters, I love the plot and setting. The fights, really awesome. I like the animation style. It has a more cartoony feel to it in a lot of places, but I really like that style that it has. It feels different and unique, and it isn't by any means less good or less detailed. It's incredibly detailed, it just still has a more subdued cartoon style. So love the series. Once again, favorite thing was characters probably for this once again, and it's another favorite of mine that just gets out-favorited by 26 more. My 26th favorite anime is One Punch Man. Now, in the world of One Punch Man, it's a world of heroes and villains, and the heroes are like organized into an organization with like A ranks, B ranks, C ranks, whatever. But in that world, there is this one hero who has trained so much that he can defeat any enemy in just one shot. So he is Saitama, or from the title, One Punch Man. So basically, that's the premise, and the thing is, you would think it had a huge handicap going against it. The huge handicap being that it had this hero that could defeat any enemy in one punch. How do you make that tense? How do you make anything heavy with it? How do you make it interesting to viewers or readers or anything like that? But it really overcame that handicap. The animation is beautiful. Some of the most highly detailed animation I've ever seen. Not the most highly animated, but some of it. And the thing is, its budget wasn't even massive. It just had a team that put a lot of heart and soul into making a really, really good show. The voice acting is very, very good. Characters were great, and the character variety. I really like the variety that they had in characters. And I even reviewed this earlier this year, and I'm pretty sure I gave it a 10 out of 10. That's how good it is, and it's only 26, and I gave it a 10 out of 10. But a lot of heart and passion was just put into making this, and everything from the music to the story to just how it was all put together. was incredible. I don't. It's another thing where I don't have a bad thing to say about it. If I were to say anything bad about it, it would be that the plot of having this hero who can just do everything and beat everything off right off the bat is it's a bit of a handicap. I think it overcomes that handicap personally, but I still recognize it as a handicap. And I think a part of the reason that could even make it even better is it putting the handicap on itself and overcoming that. And that makes it even more enjoyable because you aren't expecting it to be as enjoyable or exciting as it is. So yeah, thoughts on One Punch Man at number 26. Let's get into the top 25. My 25th favorite anime of all time, Elfen Lied. Now, Elfen Lied is another one that I'll throw it in with what I said about, say, Dead Man Wonderland, where it didn't try to be really dark and edgy. It was, and I will warn you guys if you go to try to watch it, definite weirdness and gore and brutality warning for sure, because it's very, very gory and brutal, but also very artistically done in a way. It's very, very strange. The basic premise is that there are these creatures, Dionoclids or something, I don't even remember what they're called. It's been at least a year or two since I watched through it, but they essentially are human looking, but they have these invisible arms around them that can cut through anything they touch, and they pretty much one escapes and finds its way with this normal guy, and the story goes on from there. But basically they definitely dismember and behead and tear apart a lot of people in this show, and there is a lot of brutal and pretty terrible stuff in pretty much everyone's backstories as well, and it really, really makes you feel for the characters really hard. But there's, like with the child abuse in people's backgrounds and sexual abuse in people's backgrounds, to the tearing people apart and dismembering them limb from limb, to the deaths a lot. There are a lot of deaths in the series, to peeing on the floor, to freaking the main character kind of in a weird incesty relationship. There is a lot of weird stuff, and like when I was watching it, I caught myself multiple times, almost every episode, going, what in the fuck am I watching? But it was still so good. The story was incredible. It was very artsy. The soundtrack for this and that Ilium track, especially the music box version of the Ilium track, that is like one of the best and probably more iconic soundtrack pieces in anime. So very, very strong there. And I felt super strongly for the characters because of their terrible backstories. The plot and action is awesome. The action never really let me down any. Then I guess that's it. So yeah, I really loved it. Another one that I completely loved, but just some others outshone it a bit for me. Yeah, like I said, I would recommend watching, but if you're not into pretty brutal or violent stuff or any kind of blood or gore, maybe sit it out. But if you're okay with that, definitely watch it, just for how artistically well done it is, I guess. Next up, my 24th favorite anime is one that I really, really didn't expect to put nearly this high, and that's Naruto / Naruto Shippuden / a bunch of other stuff. I threw the last movie poster up here as well because I want to talk about that for sure. I didn't expect it to put it high on this list, but I really, really thought about every show, how much I like them through time and stuff, and while the low points for Naruto, like Sakura's entire character, pretty much all of Sasuke's character, all the filler, the just death filler, all of this stuff is horribly, horribly low points. The high points, I cannot deny, are some of the best, most emotional, hard-hitting, most iconic moments in all of anime. Like any of the original Sasuke retrieval arc from back in the original Naruto, amazing. Any of those fights are genius. The Naruto versus Sasuke fight there, the Kimimaro with Gaara and Rock Lee fight, the Kiba and Sakon Nukan fight, Tayuya and Shikamaru fight. I remember as a kid that Choji and Jirobo fight was amazing. So there's just so much good to go there. The original arc with Zabuza and Haku is one of the best arcs of any anime. The ending to that is hard-hitting, well-made as it can be. Like, even the anime, or even the animation in a lot of the animation in a lot of the filler arcs and not important parts is pretty shit, and a lot of the newer parts is pretty shit, but some of the well-animated stuff, the Kakashi and Toby, not gonna ruin who Toby is, even though it's been years since that was revealed for those of you that haven't watched, but the Kakashi and Toby fight, and the backstory for Kakashi, and backstory for Toby as well, the backstory there is just incredible, and it's so well animated. That fight is probably the best fight in the series and the most well animated. It's just beautiful. So yeah, while the low points are lower than just about any anime on the list, the high points are just so much higher. And anything else I wanted to say about this? Oh yeah, the Hidan and Kakuzu arc as well. Very, very good. Sasuke and Sakura both, I did want to bring up, are objectively very, very shit characters. They're pretty damned poorly written. And another problem is that if you're a fan of strong female characters, you're not finding it here. Female characters in Naruto were really badly written almost all of the time. And another thing, me and my friends would always talk about it, the show would be so much better if we focused on other characters. Like, Naruto, I think, is a pretty good character, but if it was rewritten, retooled to focus the entire show to be Kakashi's story, or Itachi's story, or even Nagato's story, I would argue as well, any of that, it'd be better than what it already is. So that's the thing. The big thing about this, the main story is good, but the universe, the overarching universe they have going through the years is probably one of the strongest and most well-written in anime. So just the universe of it just builds it up that much higher. And also the Naruto The Last movie, that is one of my favorite anime movies of all time. It's really good. I really enjoy that one. It's really got a different pace and feel than the actual show and main story, but it still feels... It just, even if I wasn't a fan of the real... Because I'm not the hugest... I don't know. It's this high on the list. How can I say I'm not the hugest fan of it? It's honestly... I don't know. I have a real love-hate relationship, but the parts I love are incredible, and some of the parts that I love most. And lastly, for part 2 of my every anime that I've ever seen, my 23rd favorite is actually going to be Kore wa Zombie Desu Ka, it was released in English as Is This a Zombie? And I think Kore wa Zombie Desu Ka of the Dead, or Is This a Zombie of the Dead, was season 2. I have not seen all of season 2 yet. I only saw the first few episodes, but this is one of the funniest shows that I have ever seen. I didn't give I just realized I didn't give the description of Naruto, but if you don't know what Naruto is about, it's ninjas, watch it, you probably already know. Kore wa Zombie Desu Ka is about this guy who is a zombie, and that's pretty much it. He's in the modern, current world. A necromancer brought him back to life as a zombie, and he runs into magical girls, vampire ninjas, and all kinds of other crazy stuff. And it's a comedy. Don't get me wrong, it's a comedy, but it has action, it has ecchi, it has a little bit of adventure, but it's mostly comedy. And it's honestly one of the funniest anime I've ever seen. There are definitely a good probably 4 even comedy that I have on the list above this, because there are some really, really funny and good comedy. But this is one of the funniest for sure. It's got really good I like the action a lot too. The action goes really well with the comedy. I would say watch it. It's a riot. You'll have a lot of fun with it. It's a really fun series. It's a bit of nonsensical comedy, but it's kind of grounded by the action. Really, really good. And beyond that, I actually really liked the plot and the characters, and I really love the range it has. It has a good range with being able to do comedy well, being able to do the characters and serious points and fights well. It just has a very good range as a show, and I enjoy that. So that would be my last one for this week that I would say check out. You'll have a really fun time with it. You'll definitely have some laughs out of it. And that's it for numbers 44 to 23 of every show that I've ever seen, every anime I've ever seen. So, yeah, next week, hopefully I'll try to get it up sometime next week with Thanksgiving coming up and everything. But I'll have my top 22, the 22 that I consider my most favorite anime that I've ever seen. That'll be next week, so I hope you guys are ready for it, and I hope you guys enjoyed this video as well. Like if you did like this video, comment down there and tell me what you thought of these 22 shows, what you thought of my thoughts on them, anything else, what you like or dislike about any of them. This was probably even longer than the last one. I felt like I had a lot more to discuss about a lot of these, and that's it. So I just hope you enjoyed. Like I said, like, comment, subscribe for more anime, manga, tons of other things. We are growing quite quickly. I think at the time I'm recording this we have like 311 subs, and I started making this when we had 250. So yeah, I'm really happy about that, and really happy for those of you that stuck through this whole thing. Follow on Twitter as well. I'll try to keep you updated there as best I can on stuff for the channel. And that's it, so thank you once again for watching, and I'll see you all next time.